Now that the Pi is all configured and booted up and set up and ready to go, what we need to do is put the stuff on it that is going to transform it from a normal Raspberry Pi that anybody would have into a machine capable of supporting our REST home automation endpoint. So what's going to be needed in order to do that is a general package update of the software, and then installing the Python package manager and turning around and using that to install something called PyUSB, which is going to allow the CM19A driver of the device pictured here to make use of the USB port on the Raspberry Pi. And finally, once the CM19A driver is installed, it'll be time to configure that driver and make it play nicely with the rest of the operating system. First up, we're going to update all of the different packages that are available inside of the Raspberry Pi, and we're going to do that using something called sudo apt-get update. And what this command is doing, sudo tells it to escalate and run this command as root, which is the Windows equivalent of escalating to administrator. Apt-get is the Linux package manager. If you've used something like Chocolatey for the Windows operating system, it's a similar kind of deal for Linux operating systems. There's also the concept on smartphones of the App Store, similar kind of deal on Linux. So right now it's updating all the different packages that come on the default operating system image, because between whenever that image was created and right now, there are likely to be all manner of updates, as you can see happening here. Also worth mentioning is that what I'm running on is a SSH window right now. Instead of showing you the USB cam of the monitor with the Raspberry Pi, I went in real quick and installed this tool that lets me remote into the server and into the Raspberry Pi and control it remotely. And I'm going to show you how to do that in the next module, but for the purposes of getting a more clear recording, I want to do this so it's easier for you to see. It's important in the last section to see what it actually looks like when you first boot up the Raspberry Pi, but you can install SSH at any time and get it going, and there's no need to go on showing the camera view of everything from here forward. So this should be done shortly, and there it goes. And now the update is complete, and it's going to be time from here to install a tool. apt-get is the thing that you'll use also to do installations. So we say sudo apt-get, and this time instead of update, we want to install. And the thing that we want to install is called Python pip. And what this is going to do is let us install the package manager for Python, because we are going to need to install a different Python module. And what it did there is basically tell me how much space that this would be taking up, and then ask me if I was sure about that, and I said yes, because I do in fact want to install this. So I'm going to let it unpack and install, and then when it's done, I'm going to move on to installing the PyUSB tool that we need in order to use the driver with Python. Now this is going to take several more minutes to finish installing, so what I'm going to do is let it do the rest of its thing, and then I'll check back in with you once it's done. Alright, so the Python package manager pip is now installed, so what I'm going to do at this point is invoke the sudo command once again, and this time I'm going to say pip, and I want to install PyUSB, which is the Python USB module. And like the last one, this is going to take a little while to install, so I'll let it run and then check back once it's done. Alright, now it's time to install the CM19A driver. And to do that, I'm going to go to a site called cm19a.com. This is the website of the driver itself. The driver is open source and free to use. It's written by somebody named Andrew Cudden, and this is his site. So in order to get to the driver, I'm going to scroll over here to the right. On your screen, you'll most likely just see this fully, but I have to scroll over to get to this Python CM19A driver software link. Once I get there, I can scroll down a bit, and this is where you can find the driver itself. Download the latest version of my CM19A software. And what this does is it takes you to a Google Drive location, and you can actually go in here, and through this interface, you can download the individual files, or you can download the zip file from Google Drive. But for our purposes here through PuTTY, I'm going to use a command line command called wget. So I need an actual concrete link, a URL that I can use in order to get the software. So what I've done is on my own personal website, I've created a link to this exact software. And this way, if the software is later updated to a newer version or changed or anything like that, you can still come back here and grab this exact software from my website. I will always leave it like this so it lines up with the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this link, and if I hit enter here, you can see that it actually downloads a copy of the CM19A driver.zip. So I've got that link copied. Now I'm going to go over to PuTTY. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type wget -O, and then I'm going to supply a file name. I want to call this file.zip. And then I'm going to paste in the URL that I copied from my site. Now, what this tells wget, the command, is to go out, grab this file, and store it locally. So I'm going to do exactly that. And now if I do an ls, I can see that I have file.zip copied locally. I'm going to now create a folder called driver with make directory command. And then I'm going to move using mv, the file.zip, to that new folder. And I'm going to switch into the folder. And finally, I'm going to unzip file.zip. And now we have extracted. If you do a list, you can see all of the files that are necessary to run the driver have now been downloaded and are located on the actual Pi itself. All right, at this point, we are almost ready to start turning lights on and off, but there's one more thing we have to do. And what we have to do is stop modules that are going to be loaded into the Raspberry Pi's kernel that are going to contend with the CM19A driver. And this is done by editing a file called the modpro blacklist. So what I'm going to do is say sudo nano, and then I'm going to navigate to a directory and a file called blacklist.conf. And what nano actually allows you to do is engage a text editor. And this file is being edited in create mode because it doesn't yet exist, but we are going to add a couple of entries to it. One of them is going to be to blacklist a module called ATI USB, and the other is going to say blacklist ATI remote. And this is going to prevent those modules from ever being loaded into the kernel and thus contending with the CM19A driver. And so with that, we are ready to start turning on lights.